Hey there guys, this is a short explanation about how I fish with a ledger rig. I've been asked to go through the ledgering setup I use by a few guys now, so I figured this is probably the easiest way of doing it. So in this video, it's only going to be short. I'm going to try and keep it under like 15 minutes. In this video I'm going to explain the most of my ledgering techniques and how I use them. It's going to be a lot of photographs and drawings and me talking over the drawings. So if this sort of thing is what you like to see, give me a shout. Let me know in the comments below. I can go through all the rigs I use, like drifter float fishing, like some of the float ledgering stuff you would do if you're on a boat. Let me know if this is what you want to see more of, and if it is, then I'll go through it again with you guys, okay? Right, picture number one. Here we have my basic bog standard ledgering setup. You'll see that I have a trace, you'll see that I have some rig tubing, and you'll see that I have a free running ledger that's attached to about 3 to 4 feet of like 10 pound to 12 pound monofilament line that I will tie knots about 4 or 5 times up this link. This is called a sacrificial ledger or a rotten bottom. This is designed so if the lead gets stuck, you can pull the rod, the lead line will snap, you will lose the lead, but you will get back all your terminal tackle except for the lead. Let's be honest, leads are cheap. None of us as pike anglers want to be leaving our traces that are on the bottom. That's just a surefire way to end up with pike eating a baited trace and end up, getting traces in its gut. That's never good for the fish. So this is just an overview of my basic ledgering setup. We're going to take a look now at the next picture, which is more in depth. It's a closer up photograph of the setup. As per this photograph, you can see that I have started off, I'm going to start off left through to right. So on the left edge, you will have your trace. It's a standard, trace that's between 18 to 24 inches in length. I like AFW bleeding leader. You guys all know that. I've showed you how to tie traces in different videos, so that's my standard trace. Moving on from the trace, you'll come to a clip and a swivel. This is a ball bearing clip and a swivel. This is made by AFW or Cox and Roll. They all do good swivels, they all do good stuff. Then above that you'll have a Fox Tulip Bead. This slides down over the swivel, and this is what you plug your rig tubing into. Above the rig, above the tulip bead, you'll see that there is a Catfish Pro Run Ring. Those are brilliant run rings. They are the best run rings that I have ever used. I found with plastic ones, when you cast them, sometimes the plastic snaps. This run ring is sliding up and down 24 inches, or maybe at the most 2.5 feet of standard rig tubing. You can get it from Fox, from Corda, from Nash, from wherever, ProLogic, whatever. This is just standard rig tubing. This is designed so that the last bit of monofilament on your main line that's touching the bottom of the loch or the river or wherever is being protected from the zebra mussels. Unfortunately, where I fish, zebra mussels are a constant threat. They will destroy 20 pound mainline. They will go through it like knives through butter. So you have to beef up the last little bit of your terminal tackle to stop the zebra mussels from destroying your terminal tackle. Last thing you want is a break off, so this is what I use to beef up my terminal tackle. Here we have a rough drawing of what the rig will look like on the bottom. You can pause this rig, you can pause any of these photographs in this video, and it'll show you exactly what you need to do, how you can build this rig up. But this is just a quick picture of what it looks like on the bottom of the system. I'm now going to talk about how you can raise your main line off the bottom, so that if there's like a ledge or a big tree or something that's in your way between your bait and the bank where you're fishing, you want to have your main line lifted off that, but you also need to have adequate bite indication. So this is the next rig I'm going to show you, is what I call the Lock Iron Anti-Zebra Mussel rig. Here is my anti-zebra mussel rig that I use for the Earn, where I'm fishing over ledges or big snags, or places where I know that there's zebra mussels between my bait and where I am on the bank. It's a standard ledger rig. The only thing that's different about it is that there is a poly ball. You can see it in this picture, it's the big green thing, and it will slide up the main line. Now it'll slide up the main line to about 20 feet where there is a stop knot. So this poly ball, once you've cast out, it will slide up the main line, it'll come to the stop knot and it'll stop there. It'll then give you the buoyancy to keep your main line off the bottom, away from the snags, away from the zebra mussels. You can wind down as tight as you normally can with this rig. You can still clip up with your drop arms, you can still get really good bite indication. It doesn't affect your bite indication in any way. All this is doing is providing buoyancy to your main line to keep it out of trouble. I'm going to show you now a quick drawing of what it should look like in the water. Here it is in the water, or a drawing of it, what it would look like in the water. You can see that your ledger line setup is still perfectly at the bottom, how it normally is. The only thing that's different is your main line is lifted slightly off the bottom, away from the snags. On the Earn, or pretty much any Irish fishery, you're going to have problems where zebra mussels are pretty much everywhere now. If there's rocks, they will carpet it. You might find in certain places that there is maybe a couple inches deep of zebra mussels. If your line touches this, then your line's going to get really damaged really quickly. So this is how I get my main line off the bottom and still ensure that I have the best bite indication that I can have, and still ensure that if the pike picks up the bait, the drop arm's going to go and I'm going to be straight there to strike into the fish. Now I'm going to talk about a different type of rig. This is predominantly a rig that you would use if you were fishing with live baits, or you wanted to suspend a dead bait up in the water columns. I have to clarify, because I live in Northern Ireland, live baiting is no bueno. Not allowed to do it. You are not allowed to get caught live baiting. Take that as you will. Same in Scotland. Again, don't get caught live baiting. In England, it's all tickety-boo. But let's talk about the Sunken float Paternoster rig. Okay? You're going to see a drawing now in a second. Here we have a standard Sunken float Paternoster rig. Let's start from the bottom and work our way to the top. At the very bottom, you'll find the lead weight. On this sort of rig, I have no problems using a 4 through to 6 ounce lead weight. I want my bait to be anchored in a position, especially when I'm fishing a river. I want a heavier lead so that the bait doesn't move. If it's moving, that means your bite indication is shot. You don't want that. You want a good anchor point, so don't be scared to use a heavier lead. Above that, you'll find a 3 to maybe 6 foot of rotten bottom lead link. With this, you have to remember, if it's a 6 foot long length of mono that you've tied, it's going to make casting a little bit difficult. So if you're dropping it off with a bait boat, it isn't a problem. Or if you're taking it out in a boat and dropping it over the side, then it isn't generally an issue. But if you're having to cast it, a 6 foot lead link can be a bit problematic. This lead link will be attached to the swivel at the bottom of the up trace. Now let's discuss up traces. My up traces, I make them from American fishing wire surf strand. I use 90 pound surf strand. I want a nice, stiff, solid up trace. At the bottom of the up trace, I have one of those Fox Predator rotary up trace kits. These are actually brilliant, fair play to Fox for making them. It's a little kit that you can crimp into place at the bottom of an up trace that gives your bait a full 360 degree range of movement, and it's strong enough to battle the biggest fish. So fair play to them. The only difference I do with the Fox rotary up trace kit is I will put a little crimp above it so it's crimped into place at the bottom of the up trace. To the up trace I attach my 12-inch bait trace. This is the only time I will ever use a shorter than 18 inches bait trace. But the reason you use an up trace and the reason you're using this shorter trace is that if the bait ever happened to get tangled around your up trace and the pike hits it, then the pike still has wire in its teeth. It's not going to break you off. Don't be tempted to use fluorocarbon up traces. They don't work. They're not pike safe. So we have our bait clipped onto our little trace. We have our up trace. At the top of the up trace, there's a standard swivel, normal swivel that I have in all my up traces. And then I fish everything to a clip, so you can unclip it once you've caught the fish. Above that swivel, I'll have a little swivel and a clip that holds it all to the main line. And then I have a couple of beads and a sunken float. This sunken float for me tends to be that's about the size of a drifter float. If you can remember the drifter floats that Fox make, it's about the same sort of size as that. I want it to be buoyant. I want to hold my bait up in the water. There's a stop knot above that holds it in place. Now for sunken Paternoster fishing, I'm using braided line. I'm not using mono, and I'm using a minimum strength of 50-pound breaking strain braid. Once you cast this out, setting up your drop arms is easy. If you wind down tight, then you're basically pulling your float down towards the bottom. So once you've got it tight, you let out line at a foot a little bit at a time. And eventually the float will stand up in the water column and it won't take any more line from you. It can be a little bit fiddly, but it does the job really, really well. So once you've got the float set up so it's not taking any line, it's just a little bit of tension on your line, you can then clip on your drop arm, and this makes your setup absolutely rock solid. As soon as that pike touches that bait, your drop arm is going to go and you're going to be on to the fish. So there you go, that's my sunken float Paternoster rig. Hey guys, I'm using my phone because my webcam's gone up the left. It's not syncing the audio to the video for some bizarre reason. Anyway, this is just a quick rundown of how I fish with my ledgering setup for all my dead baiting. Besides the sunken float Paternoster rig, that's a little bit special. I just throw that on to spoil you guys. But the basic ledgering stuff, that's it. That's the basic way I fish. It's easy. If I can do it, then you can do it. You know, there's no stress here. There's no slip D's and hinged rigs and all that stuff that the carpists do. It's just a standard running ledger. I hope that you guys enjoyed this short video, and if you want to see more in-depth discussions about the different rigs that I use, then please let me know. Until then guys, tight lines.